Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP, Nick is here in attendance with me as usual, because today we are going to be going through our SmackDown recap for the show that happened just a couple of days ago. This is the SmackDown literally just before NXT Vengeance Day, which took place last night as of recording. So we are off the back of the Royal Rumble. This is the second week of SmackDown since that event. So, how about we go into everything that happened, break everything down, and summarize everything that took place. First of all, we would start off the show with Cody Rhodes, the WWE Undisputed Champion. He would take to the ring, and he would basically start a promo where he would basically be hyping up people who have already qualified for the Elimination Chamber match. He'd go on to mention the people who have qualified so far. He would throw sort of like a little backhanded compliment towards Drew McIntyre, because he would basically just hype up everybody individually that are qualified so far, except for Drew McIntyre. He would say, and then there's Drew McIntyre. So, not really giving him massive amounts of respect there. Drew would notice that immediately, and he would actually make his way down to the ring to confront Cody Rhodes. The two would have a little bit of a back and forth, Drew essentially demanding more respect from Cody, and then it wouldn't take too long before Jacob Fatu of the Bloodline, himself and Tama Tonga would come on down. And Jacob Fatu has a qualifier later on in the show. So he would basically say to Cody Rhodes, like, look, I don't care about anybody else. I'm going to be qualifying for the Elimination Chamber, and I'm going to bring that title back to the Bloodline. Drew McIntyre would basically take this opportunity to leave, leaving the two just talk between themselves. And then it would get to a situation where Jacob Fatu, Cody Rhodes, they'd be having a little bit of back and forth before Solo Sikoa would arrive into the arena. Obviously, Solo from last week would attack Cody Rhodes. So Jacob Fatu wants answers. He wants to know what's going down. He would say, right, I want the first word with Solo Sikoa, so I'm going to go off and I'm going to go see him. Cody would say that he allows him to have the first word or whatever, but he will always have the last word. It was quite an interesting interaction between the two men. Obviously, with Solo and Drew McIntyre, there's a few little elements regarding this one, but it was quite the interesting segment to kick off Friday Night SmackDown. We would then go into our first match of the night, which would see a Elimination Chamber qualifier between Naomi and Chelsea Green. Naomi would defeat Chelsea Green, defeating the Women's United States Champion in a match that was actually pretty decent in my personal opinion. I quite enjoyed this one, and it allowed both women to just really sort of like showcase what they're about in that ring, with Naomi getting that decisive victory in the end and qualifying for the Elimination Chamber match. She would obviously join the likes of, her tag team partner Bianca Belair in that chamber contest. So that's going to be quite interesting, the dynamic between those two in said match. We saw a little bit, in the Royal Rumble, so maybe this sort of like is going to be the next step in whatever goes down between those two. But yeah, Chelsea Green, didn't expect her to win this match. Obviously, being the United States Champion, she's got other things to deal with right now. Naomi, it's the logical choice to win this one. No real shocks there. We would then go into our next match of the night, which would be a tag team contest. We would see the Motor City Machine Guns taking on Los Garza. And Motor City, they want to go back up to the title picture. They're obviously being screwed out of the the championship match at the Royal Rumble by Street Profits. Motor City Machine Guns would get the victory here in this contest after a pretty decent match against Los Garza. I think recently the better exposure for Angel Umberto has been really, really welcome, in my opinion. They sort of like went a while where they were just sort of like here and there on the card, not really being used very often. But in the recent weeks, couple of months, they've been used really, really well. And, just getting a match like this against Motor City Machine Guns, I think was a nice way of just, keeping them able to be showcased on a regular basis. And yeah, I mean, Motor City just doing what they do best, putting on a good performance, winning a match, and keeping themselves relevant in that title picture, which I'm sure is going to, escalate into something some point. We've got the Street Profits, we got them, we got DIY, pretty deadly are in the mix. There's so many things going on right now. The tag team situation is great on SmackDown, and this was another good match to keep that flow running. We would then go into a segment between Shinsuke Nakamura and LA Knight afterwards. 1 second, just before I do go into a bit too much detail. Okay. So the next segment then would be Shinsuke Nakamura and LA Knight. They would have a little bit of a back and forth in the middle of the ring. Originally, Shinsuke would come down to the ring. We hadn't seen him in a little while, so it was nice to see the United States Champion. Last time we saw him with the Royal Rumble. I think that was only a couple of weeks ago, but still, like being involved, in regular action on SmackDown is nice to see. But we would have LA Knight come down as Shinsuke was basically saying how, you know what, he's been hiding in the shadows. He's been waiting for somebody to impress him, essentially. And then he can, you know, look to defend the title, his title against that somebody, you know, maybe going forward. LA Knight would basically call out on his BS, essentially just saying, like, you know what, okay, maybe you have been lying in the shadows, but you haven't been waiting on anybody. You're happy to stay waiting, and you don't really care about honoring that title as well as I did. It wouldn't be too long before the Miz would come on down to the ring. Miz would basically get up in the face of LA Knight, saying, you know what, last year I said you could be a flash in the pan. Maybe perhaps I was wrong. You're still here. You still got the fans chanting your name and, you know, going on with your catchphrase. Okay, maybe I was wrong on that one. They would have a little bit of back and forth, basically saying how you know, LA Knight would basically go to the Miz. You know what, you're not good enough. You're not on my level. Like, why are you here? You haven't been relevant in ages. You basically just go down and like play him down like that. The Miz would basically eventually get a little bit frustrated, starting a little bit of a brawl between the two men. Nick Aldis will come on down and basically say, you know what, right, this is how we're going to do things. Miz up against LA Knight right here, right now, and the winner goes up against Shinsuke Nakamura for the United States Championship. That would lead into that match directly straight afterwards, where LA Knight would defeat The Miz and therefore become the number one contender for the United States Championship. So it looks like we're going to be having a rematch, you know, from obviously beforehand where Shinsuke would take the title from LA Knight. So it's now going to be that rematch between the two men, and we'll have to see what happens from there. But regarding all these four segments here, Nick, what did you think of the start of Friday Night SmackDown and the matches that followed suit?
Yeah, what a roller coaster ride SmackDown felt like. At least to me personally, it felt like we were trying to work on about 100 different stories. Even the opening promo with Cody, Drew, and Jacob. Man, it felt like everyone was trying to rush to get their bit in. But yeah, Cody showing respect to Drew was an interesting kind of, he's a babyface, of course, but it felt like he was almost a bit like, oh, sorry, let me correct that for you, and then Jacob coming in and addressing Solo, and then they're both kind of going after Solo. Have their eyes set on that. We see that throughout the night. New Bloodline kind of not looking super strong again. More on that later. But that was an interesting segment, a good one. Just a lot going on for sure. Chelsea Green being defeated by Naomi. Again, kind of similar to how we felt with the Lyra Valkyria being in one of these. Felt like she probably shouldn't win because she needs to defend that at Mania. So probably need to work on starting to set up a story there. Although for this one, I felt like with Naomi being in the chamber and winning here. With Bianca already in there, well, we're going to have to address the elephant in the room. And sure enough, they did. And so we see a segment on that later on in the evening with some found footage. Interesting take on that. But we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I think Naomi winning here, being the fifth of the six women to qualify, and then last one on Monday. But yeah, a good enough match. Even if the winner was a bit predictable. Motor City Machine Guns winning here. And you mentioned kind of the boost to Los Garzas. I feel like personally they've always been a bit underrated. I feel like their booking has never been as good as it should be. But anyways, yeah, and we mentioned this, and I feel like a broken record at this point. SmackDown tag division is incredible, and all teams deserve to be pushed. But at this point, it feels like DIY and Street Profits divisions to lose. Street Profit cut a promo later on in the evening as well, and it was incredible in my opinion. Can't wait to see these heel Street Profits in action. But yeah, this is a good match, and felt like it continued to elevate MCMG. Let's see where that goes. LA Knight coming back to challenge Shinsuke. Shinsuke appearing, I think, is all great directions to head. Miz being in there, I think, just to be a mouthpiece for the promo, kind of. because we know Shinsuke and LA Knight, aren't going to hold a promo that long due to Shinsuke's inability. And that being said, I don't know. I don't think the Miz is going to be in this long term, but I wouldn't be mad at it either. The promo between Miz and LA Knight was incredible, as it should be. Two of the best in the business in terms of promo work. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see if they take that. Again, I wouldn't be mad at Miz being in there. It would certainly help liven up the promos. Shinsuke is good on his own if he can cut like a pre-recorded and perhaps, speaking Japanese. I think that helps a bunch too. I'm glad Triple H lets him do that. But in terms of just LA Knight and Shinsuke 1-to-1, I don't think that promo is going to entertain too many. And unfortunately, I think that's the big thing that holds him back, Shinsuke. But I think he has a better chance to do anything now than he would have before. But yeah, goodness, this just being half the things we're going to talk about, just tons of storyline. On our way to WrestleMania, there's so many things to talk about. I could probably go on for hours. But a good first half of the show, and feel like the Mania picture outside of the men's, getting the men's elimination chamber and going after Cody, and all the stories going around that. Everything else feels like we're kind of starting to see things a little bit clearer. We're still about 2 months out, so good to see.
Yeah, so basically things are starting to heat up a little bit here on SmackDown. I think regarding, Shinsuke Nakamura, it's just good to see him back in the fray. Like, I don't want to go like a few weeks without really seeing him. I think you lose sort of the relevancy there, and you sort of like lose the prestige of the championship, sort of like fades away bit by bit. So yeah, to see like him just being back now, obviously just not even in a match capacity, but like just sort of being involved in whatever, it just sort of like makes sense to me rather than like hiding away and whatever. But I think LA Knight sort of like did a decent job there of basically saying, you know what, creative hasn't exactly put you very well recently. You've been hiding away. Let's see you a bit more often. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this one goes down. I mean, a rematch is something that, I don't think we really definitely needed, necessarily, but it's it's something that I am quite looking forward to. I don't think they'll, give LA Knight the title back or anything, but it's just an interesting thing to see what is going to take place going forward from here, whether this leads into WrestleMania, like you said, with The Miz perhaps being in and around the conversation still. I don't know. LA just did beat The Miz, but, it's possible that they sort of like do sort of like implement him still going in that further down the line. But yeah, I mean, these 4 segments of SmackDown here, an interesting way to kick things off. How about we continue with everything that did take place on SmackDown as we go into our next little bit of conversation, which was Carmelo Hayes and R-Truth. They would have a little bit of a backstage segment moments before their match, and basically it would essentially be a case of just R-Truth being R-Truth, the treasure that he absolutely is, just being his completely clueless self as usual. Carmelo Hayes basically getting a little bit aggressive. They would have that match together, and it would be Carmelo Hayes that would beat R-Truth in that one-on-one encounter. No real shocks there. Carmelo's been on a pretty torrid run, since, I don't know, about, mid last year or so. I think post Money in the Bank, he's only really had that Andrade 7 series, and then since then it's been very much here and there. But in these last couple of matches, Akira Tozawa, R-Truth, yeah, sure, they aren't exactly, your main event caliber contenders, but it's still opportunities for Carmelo Hayes to rally up a couple of wins and to keep things moving in the better direction for himself. So yeah, it wasn't exactly a long match, but it was a decent enough one to sort of like get Carmelo Hayes a little bit more TV time and to get him a big victory that he does need at the moment. So yeah, that was, nothing I can really complain about with that one. We would then go on to a championship match, which would see Tiffany Stratton put her gold on the line, the women's championship, against Nia Jax, the former champion, the woman who she would cash in on just before the new year. We would basically see Tiffany Stratton and Nia have a decent enough match. There was nothing really to mention here regarding, the proceedings. It's basically how you expect to. Nia dominating for a bit here and there. Tiffany rallying in parts, and it would get to a point where Tiffany would be looking to finish up the job. she would go to the top rope, looking to hit her prettiest moonsault ever, and Candice LeRae would get involved, would interfere, and would basically just attack Tiffany, in complete eyesight of the referee. Didn't try and hide it or anything, and disqualification. Nia would be disqualified, Tiffany would win, therefore hold on to her gold. And it was a little bit of a strange end. I'm not entirely convinced by how they did it. I don't know. I think it doesn't really help the situation. It looks like possibly Nia and Tiff could go again, maybe down the line. The DQ finish was a bit strange. It wasn't even trying to be it wasn't even trying to hide it as well. I don't know. I just find that a little bit odd. But yeah, Tiff does hold on to her gold. Nia Jax would continue to show frustrations after the contest. She would beat down Tiffany Stratton, leaving her in the middle of the ring as her and Candice LeRae would walk up the ramp. Then we would hear the music of Charlotte Flair. She would come down to the ring, who had been watching backstage anyway, been watching the match take place. She would grab the steel chair that was in the ring that was used by Nia, and she would perch it up, take a seat, and she'd basically just talk really condescendingly towards Tiffany Stratton for a couple of moments, basically talking down towards her. And then she would say, "The Queen chooses you." So Charlotte Flair announces that she's going to go one-on-one with Tiffany Stratton at WrestleMania. I think most of us did expect to see this. But now it's officially confirmed and is also, that's what we're going to be getting at WrestleMania. So Charlotte versus Tiff for the Women's Championship. Yeah, looking forward to it. Should be a really good matchup. I can't argue that. And then we go into our main event. This would be an Elimination Chamber qualifying contest between three men. We've got Braun Strowman, Jacob Fatu, and Damian Priest. And, when you put these three in the middle of the ring together, they're going to be delivering quite a heavy-hitting contest. As Big E once said, big meaty men smacking meat. And that's essentially what this was about right here. But this was obviously for a spot at the Elimination Chamber, the fifth spot in the men's match. And it would be a heavy-hitting contest, as you would expect it to be when these three are involved. It would go to the outside. There'd be announce table spots. There'd be, carnage in the middle of the ring. There'd be interference. This had a whole lot going on throughout the majority. Eventually, it would lead to Jacob Fatu being thrown over the barricade at ringside, with Damian Priest heading into the ring to go essentially one-on-one with Braun Strowman in the closing segments. Braun would look to go for the win, but Damian Priest would turn things around, hit a South of Heaven chokeslam, and get the 1-2-3, booking himself a spot in the Elimination Chamber match. Quite a fun watch, this one. Enjoyed it. Damian Priest continues to be booked really, really well, and, pushed into those big matches and opportunities. So he goes to the Elimination Chamber, and that chamber match looks just increasingly studded, and very, very strong throughout the entire depth of the field. So it's an interesting one for sure. Great match to end SmackDown, and very, very, very fun watch as well. Nick, what are you thinking regarding all of these segments then, buddy? We got obviously the three matches, plus we got Charlotte Flair saying her intentions for WrestleMania. We saw that coming. But what are your thoughts on all these?
Yeah, I think Carmelo getting another win, obviously, as we mentioned, the best of seven with Andrade. Still not entirely sure, where that's headed, where he's headed. Clearly he's being pushed because he's, winning. Just his opponents aren't, no one's going to be super impressed with the win over R-Truth. No offense to him, but I think eventually you have to put him in some sort of title picture. So, that's probably the end game for everyone, of course, but I feel like that needs to be sooner rather than later. I wouldn't see any issues in putting him up in the U.S. title picture. If LA Knight is not long term, or even if he is, putting him in there with maybe him and The Miz. We did see a segment with The Miz, in his suggested tag team, which got a good chuckle out of me. So maybe that's where we're going. The four of them in the U.S. title picture. I think that could certainly be entertaining. But we'll just wait and see what happens there. The Tiffany Stratton Nia Jax match. Yeah, kind of similar to the tag title match last week with the War Raiders. And yeah, if you're in a title match, why disqualify yourself from winning? And the Creed brothers and seeing how they did that, it just you know it makes sense in terms of storytelling because obviously you don't want Nia to lose here, clean especially, but this is your new champion. She needs to get a few wins under her belt, and what better way to start that with than beating Nia? I just feel like it wouldn't have been that big of a deal to have Tiffy win here, especially when overall she gets the business end for the most of this, um, through the match with Nia, and then afterwards taking a pretty good beatdown and then having Charlotte come out and declare her title match with him. So yeah, not surprising on the Charlotte bid. I think I'm about 60% sure. I think that's the better choice. Um, Mommy and Charlotte would have been a good one as well, but we'll push that off for another year. We have seen it a couple times already, so in terms of something fresh, I think that's the better option. Obviously, um, I just really hope Charlotte doesn't come out on top. But well, plenty of time to talk about that. We'll see where they take this. One other slight issue I have is now that Charlotte is a heel and Tiffy is not. It feels like, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this as well. It feels like they're taking a bit of the edge off Tiffy's character. I think why a lot of people liked her was for her heel character. So I kind of hope they keep it that way, keep that same path. She did get brutalized quite a bit, so maybe that's kind of the reasoning that it came across that way. But anyways, keeping an eye on that, and then Trish Stratus in the back, coming to help with Candice LeRae, and then a backstage segment after this suggesting that her and Tiffy take on Candice and Nia at Elimination Chamber. So that'll be a fun, kind of tag match. We seem to get those a few times a year with a veteran of the business. So that'll be interesting and help continue to set up what hopes to be continuing to push Tiffy. Main event similar to the opening promo was a lot. That's a lot going on, and I say this match brings us what we probably expected, but I don't mean that in a bad way. Simply because it was entertaining, as you mentioned. It was a great match to watch, and lots and lots of spots. So, I think I argue that Jacob is the better option here. But I don't know if that's just me just not caring much about Damien. But I think Jacob makes more sense here. But obviously, Jacob has plenty of other things to do. So with Braun and the Bloodline and what else, whatever else. So in terms of that, I guess it makes sense. Damian Priest is probably I don't want to say he's the biggest name here, but regardless, he's the one that gets up the victory here and headed for Elimination Chamber. So we'll see where Jacob and the Solo story goes, and then Solo and Cody in the back in the altercation as well. Curious where that's going as well. But yeah, I think SmackDown's done a great job of further increasing my intrigue for Mania, and that's what we need to be doing here. But overall, a great episode. Gave this one 9 out of 10. Felt like it's doing everything you want it to be doing, building up all your stories, building up your intrigue for Mania.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think it's getting to that point now where we really are on that road to WrestleMania, and building towards the Elimination Chamber is a very important part of that. And it seems like we're now getting to that point. I didn't think I mentioned Trish Stratus's involvement in the Tiffany Stratton situation as well. Her coming down to aid Tiff at the end there. And they've actually got a match now booked for the Elimination Chamber, which is going to be Tiffany and Trish Stratus with Nia and Candice LeRae. So thought I'd just quickly add that in there, just a little thing that I forgot to mention. But yeah, with regards to Tiffany's character, I remember you asking me a couple of minutes ago. I think maybe there is a little touch of that. I think perhaps since winning the championship, maybe she's lost a little bit of that edge. And I don't know, maybe just adapting to who she's in the ring with, perhaps. Maybe she's got to sort of like, I don't know, subside a little bit of a gimmick to sort of like appease everybody else. But I don't know. I definitely think there's definitely claims for that for sure. So it's quite interesting to see how this plays out, going forward. Her having a match with Charlotte Flair is going to be very much a case of, essentially her as the champion, but the underdog against the queen, the challenger, who is essentially, a legend of the business. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how they play that out. And Tiff, if she's going to really stick to her gimmick that she's been doing for a while, I don't know how that's going to play out. It's going to be quite interesting to see. But, obviously I guess she is a face now, right? I would wager that. So her gimmick's basically been built on the fact that she's been a heel up until that point, winning the championship. So yeah, I think that transitional period is quite interesting to see how it plays out. But yeah, I think we're still in that transitional period now. So maybe she's just trying to find her feet, get used to the new the new way of displaying her gimmick, and then we can go from there. But no, I thought the show was pretty good as well. Like you said, you gave it a 9. I think I'd give this one an 8 out of 10. It was definitely a positive show. I think, decent SmackDown. I think they are starting to improve things going forward, which is kind of nice to see after that sort of like blip that we've had previously. But no, I think, building towards a lot of good things here, keeping things flowing, momentum building for other people like Carmelo Hayes, whatnot. I don't really have any major negatives here. I know you mentioned Damian Priest maybe winning could have been Jacob Fatu being a better option to win. But I would agree with that. I would have liked to have seen Jacob in there. I think he would have ran riot in the Elimination Chamber. But I suppose if Jacob's going to be in there and he's not the one that's going to be winning, he does have to take a pinfall. So I think maybe that's their logic there. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen Jacob Fatu in there. It would have been very entertaining. But oh well, it is what it is. But yeah, not a bad episode of SmackDown. We're getting close to the Elimination Chamber. Not too far away. I think it's on the 1st of March. So still a little bit of ways to go, but we're on our way. But yeah, this SmackDown was decent and not too bad. So guys, thank you very much for tuning on in. This has been The Push with Nick and KP. If you like this one, then please hit a like on the video. Please subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments what you think of everything. Whether you agree with us, whether you think we're talking a little bit here or there. Yeah, let us know in those comments. We'd like to see what you guys are thinking as well. But we'll see you guys in the next one. We've got NXT Vengeance Day reactions coming up soon. And we'll see you then. Thank you very much for tuning into The Push with Nick and KP, and we'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye, everyone, and take care.